Welcome everybody in to Nebraska Corn Huskers Live, episode 179. I'm pretty sure. I keep forgetting to check that before the show. But more importantly than the episode number, my guest today from Generation Red podcast, back again, Ken and his son Scott, who's also a part of that channel as well. So they're both joining me this week to, give their thoughts on certain things that we're going to go into and answer questions, so drop your questions in here as you come in and we will get to them as the show goes along. And towards the end of the show, I'll kind of filter back through and answer any questions you have, whether it be football, non-football. But first things first, let's just go ahead and meet Ken and Scott in case you haven't yet. So Ken, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the people about you, where they can find you?
Yeah, obviously my name is Ken. I'm one of the hosts of Generation Red with my oldest son, Scott. We started our podcast back in 2021, the greatest 3-9 team in the history of college football. So we bear that distinction of deciding that, well, maybe it's our fault. Maybe it's our fault they went 3-9. I don't freaking know, but we enjoy doing what we do. We've been live streaming since 2022. And yeah, we've been hanging out on YouTube quite a bit. We like to do that. We're hoping to do a little bit more content besides live, which I think would help our channel for sure. Yeah, that's just it. I'm retired truck driver. I work part-time at a country club and schlep clubs around and play golf when I can. So that's pretty much me.
Gotta love it. Great stuff over there. They recently had Grant Wistrom on. So go check out that live if y'all get a chance.
And Jared Tomich too. Yeah, the bookends.
Yep, guys were as well.
Angry when they hit the football field, and it was fun to watch.
Oh yeah, it was fun to listen to their perspectives too. Very, very interesting from the older mentality. So Scott, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to me and the people. This is my first time meeting you as well. So go ahead and tell the people about yourself.
Yes. Thanks for having me on, Justin. I was really looking forward to this because I was kind of sad that I couldn't make it last time. I'm Scott with GenRad Pod. I am the oldest of many, many children that the fruit of my father's loins produced.
Male children, not the oldest,
yes.
oldest, but male.
Oh yeah, oldest of the sons. Sorry. I meant to specify that. Yeah, and we've just been doing this for quite a few years now. It was just kind of a pipe dream of ours way back in the day, just something we kind of just like spit off of each other, like just off the top of our heads. And here we are, and it's just been such a fun journey. I didn't make it to the last one because I'm a newly minted father. My son was born on the 21st of May, first child of ours. So yes, thank you so much. It's been crazy. My wife is definitely holding everything together here at home really, really well. I'm super proud of her. So basically we picked the worst possible time to do a podcast, but also the best possible time. Cause I think things are looking up here with Matt Rule under control of things. And it's just going to be, hopefully, I think it's going to be an exciting contrast between where we started and where we're going. So yeah, if you guys haven't already, check out our podcast and our YouTube channel. We have a good time over there at Gen Red Pod.
Yep, for sure. Y'all go check it out. And I love the optimism. So Jackson joining us. What's up, Jackson?
Hey, Jackson. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Coach.
His BA Coaches Show. I'll have him on next week. Reach out to him. I'm going to have him on next week.
Good dude, man. Real good dude. Yeah, good content too. Fantastic.
Seems like a really, really nice guy. He knows his stuff. So excited to have him on. Moose, what's going on, man? Appreciate you joining us in here. Ken has the best studio in the Husker space. I would have to agree. That's a pretty nice setup you got going back there.
It had red behind me last time I was on, and I covered those over because it was really hard to get the white balance right on my camera. So.
Oh yeah.
Do you have the studio overview camera up right now?
No, I don't. Unfortunately, no, I don't. Sorry.
It's a beaut.
I'm a disappointment.
I'm one of the weirdos with the cameras off to the side a little bit, but it is what it is. It's recovered a lot. It used to be being way off to the side, but I've kind of set it up now to where my background is right where my dogs lay to. So sometimes you get a sneak peek of my dogs back there when they're sleeping.
Yeah, and if you're watching yourself, you can keep tabs on the little turkeys too.
Exactly. Yeah. They're good. They're good back there. They kind of just mind their own business. So,
yep.
Well, first things first, I'm going to go into a little bit of recruiting here in just a second, but off the top, I want to talk about the most recent storyline, kind of on Twitter, the Twitter sphere with recruiting, and it was the comments of TJ Lateef, and essentially what it was, and I can play just the short clip that has people kind of questioning his level of commitment.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to play this. Let me know if y'all can hear this when I turn it up.
We'll keep you posted at 247sports.com.
Can you hear that?
Yeah,
Really well.
it's a little quiet, but we can hear it.
Yes, sir. Quarterback, I'm Tom Lloyd.
Go back.
Shut down a little early.
Yeah.
In Nebraska, and recruitment completely shut down.
Recruitment is, we won't speak on that.
Fair enough. I love it. We'll keep you posted at 247sports.com.
He won't speak on it.
Yeah. So he said he's not going to speak on it. And I have my thoughts on it. But first off, I just want to kind of take, Ken, your thoughts since you saw in advance, and Scott, just your instant reaction to that.
You want to go first, Scott, or you want to want me to go? I've got some things kind of in my head.
Well, I'm not in the social spheres of things. I took a big break from Twitter, and Facebook is not reliable for getting any up-to-date news on anything ever. So I'm kind of in the dark with these things. So my off-the-cuff reaction to that is that could mean a whole lot. It's very ambiguous. It's very loaded. It could just be maybe he's just socially awkward and doesn't know how to handle questions like that quite yet, if I were to look at it with a glass half full mentality. Or maybe he is not so happy with how his relationship has been established so far with our coaching staff, and maybe he's sending that out as a signal to some other Power 5, or I guess Power 4 programs now, that might open up their recruitment options with him. So I don't know. I would say it's probably the latter more than the former. But that's just because Nebraska can't have nice things. So
yeah, we've got that snake bit sense all the time. There's always that, when's the other boot going to drop? My thoughts on it were, because there's a little bit more context to the video where he talks, about some guys that the running back that just committed this last week, as well as Cortez Mills, that he's actively recruiting to come along with him to supposedly Nebraska. And he had great things to say about Nebraska earlier in the clip, that his parents thought it was a safe and a great place for him to go to school, all those things. But then you get to the end and he drops that little poop nugget, if you want to call it that. That's kind of what I call it, because I'm like, that's kind of a cruddy thing to say. You could have just said, I'm not going to answer that. Or you could have just said, we're at where we're at, or something. But he seemed, his comments seemed very well reasoned, all the other things that he was talking about in that clip. So I don't know what to think, other than I think somebody's throwing some cash at him. I think Latif's one of those guys that Rule likes to go after, the guy that nobody else is offering necessarily right now. He doesn't have a whole lot of big eyes on him yet, but Rule has that reputation in college football of finding those diamonds in the rough and turning them into great players, guys that'll flourish in the NFL. So I'm sure as soon as he was offered, there was a lot of people going, we need to raise some cash and we need to go after this guy because Rule knows how to develop him. We should get him first. So that's my take. But hey, if he's waffling, turn him loose. That's my opinion. If he's waffling, turn him loose. We can move on. There's other people out there.
Here's my thing on it. This was my initial reaction, and I definitely think that it is an overreaction. And I understand kind of the comments. Now, I understand that they may be not politically correct, and it's probably not something you necessarily want your fan base to hear. However, you look at Matt Rule. Matt Rule has spoken before about how he builds relationships with these kids, and essentially when they commit somewhere, he doesn't actively recruit them, right? And so if you have a guy like TJ Lateef who has the ability he has, I did a film review on him, love him as a quarterback, man. But you have the ability he has in the modern NIL world, you still potentially want those schools to look at you and see who recruits you, see who comes after you, see what they have to offer and those things. So I almost think it was one of those things, since he knew this was going to be nationally publicized, maybe this was a shot like out to other schools to say like, no, it's not shut down. you can still, reach out, offer, and all this other stuff in case that was something that would scare you away. However, I really, am not planning on leaving. That's kind of the vibe that I got from it. I just think it's one of those things where he left the door open for the opportunities that may come. And I understand it because each individual right now in college football kind of is their own business and their own agent, if you will. So, but also at the same time, if he is a guy who's able to be pulled away from Nebraska by NIL, he's probably not one of the guys that Matt Rule necessarily is, wants on. And I don't want to say he doesn't want him on his roster. I got to say this very carefully. But if that is his number one priority, Matt Rule's kind of spoken about how he wants the guys who buy in, and, NIL can be a result of that and their development, and they can show that. But he wants the guys who buy in right away. So, yeah, that's kind of my overall take. And I don't know y'all's opinion on that, but that's my big thing. And I think it's one of those things where, kind of like you said, there's a big clip and there's just a sound bite right there where it's just like, almost like he didn't know what he should say in that moment, so he was just kind of like,
Yeah.
leave it at that.
And maybe the way to interpret it is somewhere more along the lines of maybe there is something cooking in the background that we are just not allowed to know about, and he meant to allude to that, and we completely took it into a different direction. Or it could just be the fact that he's a kid. And kids make mistakes, and kids say the wrong things, and kids get a little bit starstruck in the lights when the light's shining on them. And committing to Nebraska probably put the biggest spotlight on him as an individual that he's ever seen in his life up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so the likelihood that at some point some kid somewhere is going to make a mistake, it's just a law, law of averages is just going to be, it's not going to bode in our favor in that way. So maybe that's what it is. If I were to look at it glass half full, that's probably what it was. But we'll see. I mean, who cares? We're gonna find out either way, if he's staying, if he's going. I mean, we thought that the door with Dylan Raiola was shut, locked, and welded with no key.
Exactly.
And here we are. We got DR15. So, maybe it's just one of those things. I don't know. I do agree with you. I think it might just be one of those, hey, Alabama, hey, Georgia, hey, wherever, big top 5 teams. Throw me a bag.
Yeah, we've seen crazy things happen. I believe it was Javonte Jean-Baptiste back in 2018 with that whole saga where he was supposed to commit to Nebraska on signing day, and they had a snow day or whatever, and it delayed his commitment, and he ended up flipping to Ohio State. So, I mean, we've seen some crazy things. There's a lot of time left in this recruiting process. So I trust the staff's ability to kind of, if the relationship's there, to be able to maintain that. And if not, then, maybe he's just not the fit for the staff and what they want. And NIL is more important, and that's just the nature of the beast sometimes today. So, but you can't blame the kids for that too much. No. Negative Mike, I have endless negativity. Mike, what's going on, man? The backdrop is sweet. Yeah, it is. We have so many mics on Husker YouTube. Poised for a better year. John D'Adamo, of course, a Michigan host of the Michigan Wolverines Live. That's going to be going on after this. And appreciate it, Wilson Dittman hopping in here. Had some recruiting updates earlier for y'all. I had a live stream, I believe, last night. So, yeah, I appreciate him dropping in here. Y'all make sure you hit the like button, please. It really helps us out and gets people in here with us. So y'all continue to drop your comments and drop questions, whether it be football, non-football related. We're going to get into those. So I just wanted to give a quick recap of recruiting for, just the kind of high-level overview of where we stand with some of these guys. And I will start first off with kind of the commitment that we had. Mekhi Nelson, of course, reclassified to the 2024 class, 6 foot, 190-pound running back, number 11 player in Connecticut, number 66 running back in the country. He was offered last month. They had a camp June 9th that he was at, and then July 7th, he was also at a camp. He had a relationship with E.J. Barthel from his time at UConn. Barthel offered him over there, and they kept kind of a close relationship. And so it's one of those things that kind of pushed the staff to offer. Barthel pushed Matt Rule to kind of offer him. Once he won the MVP of a camp, then kind of Matt Rule was like, I'll go ahead and give him an offer. So it's one of those things where he is going to be one of those guys that potentially could move around. They say they liked him the way he looked at defensive back in camp. So he's one of those guys that shows promise at multiple positions just on pure athleticism. And he can also line up at the slot or be a return man. So Mickey Nelson, one of those very, I feel like almost under the radar commitments because of the reclassification of the 2024 class. And a guy that just do a lot of everything. Ran for over 1,800 yards, averaged almost 9 yards per carry. So, and he does have physicality. He can run around you, can run through you when needed, but very, very fast guy, very athletic. And David Hofkin. And so I'll ask y'all about David Hofkin because you might have seen the picture, Ken, that I posted yesterday, and that was kind of going around of David Hofkin. And that is a grown man right there, 22 years old, and he is massive. He looks every bit of 6'7", 260. What is your takeaway on him? Have you seen kind of the story behind David Hofkin and those details and kind of where he's going to play yet? Oh, Ken, sorry, you're I can't hear your sound.
Yeah, my bad. I've heard I think it was Husker Online. They did kind of a pretty extensive profile on him. The fact that, he's a 22-year-old freshman coming in tells you that he kind of got started late, in football. I think he had to do some other things before he could actually go to college. So he took a few years off and was fairly young in the game. But, man, he's got all the measurables that these guys like, especially in athleticism. 6'7", 240 pounds, can move. He's quick, explosive. Little bit of film I've seen on him. I'm not sure where I saw it, but I saw it somewhere. It was probably Twitter. But he looks like he's got some twitch at 6'7".
100%.
So, give me a defensive end like that. That's what it looks like he's going to play. And, that makes me I could see Randy Gregory all over again with that guy. Nice and long, can knock a lot of passes down, can get in the backfield in a hurry.
Yeah.
I like it. Like it. He's one of the guys that's on the list from the topics you sent me. He is definitely the defensive guy, one of the guys I'm really looking forward to, the most intriguing commit so far in the 2025 class for me.
I think the intriguing aspect of it is just the fact that, yes, he did start, from Germany, started football very late in life, and actually after COVID, took a couple of years off. And so I think he started learning football in like 2017, was on German youth teams, and then moved up to like the German youth national team, and then moved up to the highest level. Took a couple years off football, has been working back, but 6'11" wingspan, 4'9", 640. He's been visiting camps with that organization that kind of gets these guys out and about from overseas. And he got an offer there. So basically what the staff said in the quotes I got, they said, get your paperwork done and then you're good to go to camp. And he said, that's crazy. I can't believe it. Yes, I'm on board. So like they offered him on the spot. He immediately committed on the spot. Initially was looked at to be an offensive tackle, but like you said, it's looking like the most promise is for him at defensive end as a pass rusher, and with a 6'11" wingspan, 6'7", and a guy that has the abilities he does. And I'll kind of show just a quick little snippet of his of some of his drills. And I just wanted to point out something. Now, this could be me overanalyzing. This is just how I am. I kind of analyze things a little bit too in depth sometimes. But looking at his posture here on this block, and I believe this is the block he had, or sorry, on him pushing through the edge here. So what I realized, and especially looking at his offensive tape, is he very much probably, in my opinion, focused on the fundamentals, because that's one of those things that if you learn something late in life, I believe you really, and if you have a short time frame to learn it in, I believe you really hammer on physicals and studying the game. It's not one of those things where it's like you learn innately from a young age how to do these things. You later on in life have to really develop these skill sets and learn these things at a more structured molecular level. So he has a lot of things that are very to a T in terms of coaching. And I think that's really what's helped him so far, propel him into being so good. But there's one thing right here that happens here. And I don't know if he meant to do this or just where his hand falls in position, but it looks like he has a good idea and learning this stuff of leverage. And you'll see as he rushes through and comes around the edge of this offensive lineman, he'll put his forearm kind of right here in the pocket of the shoulder. And that's a mechanical advantage control hold. When you put it right there in their shoulder, a person who's larger than you isn't going to be able to do anything because you have then their shoulder locked up and you have the mechanical advantage. So watching him through right here, you see how he kind of shoves that arm into it and kind of almost drives through. So those are the little details that I'm kind of seeing in when I watch these little clips and stuff like that, that lead me to believe that he's just really hammering on the mental side of the game, the IQ of the game, and in what ways he can grow, quickly without having played the game so long. And I think that's really what helps, what's helped him in this process and got him the offer to Nebraska. Frankly, I don't know your take on that, Ken. Am I reading too much into it?
Well, you can understand the ideas of leverage and X's and O's and all those fine details of the game far deeper than I can.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think you're overstating it. I think the one thing this coaching staff loves is they love raw materials to work with that are smart. They like guys that are smart. They like guys that are extremely fast, extremely long, quick, and athletic. They love working with that. That's a great mold for them to bring a serious defensive end out. So I don't think you're too far off on that. I love that move that he made when he just basically slapped that guy in the back and moved him aside, and there he was, very Randy Gregory-esque. I remember watching him smack the living daylights out of offensive tackles many times and get to the quarterback, or at least get close and affect a pass. So I like it. I like what you had to say about him. I'm right there with you,
Scott. And I didn't really give you time to prepare on David Hopkins and stuff like that, but just in general, have you heard about David Hopkins recruiting or anything in regards to him that interests you?
Yeah, I was able to kind of pick up on some things through, I think it was The Athletic put out one, and so did the New York Times. Just kind of a little op-ed about him, just because it's such an intriguing topic. Whenever you get a player who's coming from Europe or really any country outside of the United States that wants to play football, it's always cause for intrigue, just because football is an American sport. There's not very many countries outside of the United States that takes a particular interest in this sport. And if they do, it's always subpar. And so it is always going to attract attention. But then when you see this guy, when I'm looking at him, he's got that freakishly athletic build like Thomas Fidone has.
Yeah.
And you just look at him and you go, okay, yeah, he's probably not going to be on any sort of recruiting ranking, top 1,000 or anything. He's going to fly as far under the radar as you possibly can as a recruit. And that's exactly the blueprint that Matt Rule wants.
Yep.
He's going to find that, like my dad was saying, he's going to find that guy that has the raw material that can be molded and shaped and contoured in the way that Matt Rule wants. And I think, like we were like you guys both kind of alluded to, and I would agree. So we got the trifecta of agreement here. I think he's probably got one of those football IQs where he's a quick learner. He's the type of guy where you can tell him, hey, I want you to do this, and this is how I want you to do it. He nods his head, looks up to the sky for a second, and goes out and does it first try.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's probably what he's got going for him. And I mean, athleticism can't be taught.
No,
you can't teach athleticism. You either got it or you don't.
correct.
And so I imagine he's probably got it. So he's got a very volatile interest. He could either produce at such a high level that everyone's just national level, just going, who is this guy? Where did he come from? Matt Rule's a football genius.
Right.
Or he just fizzles into relevancy and we never hear or talk about him again. He falls far, far on the depth chart and is just there as a warm body. Who knows? It's going to be one of those two things, though. I don't see much room for in between.
Exactly. He is the perfect Matt Rule under the radar recruit. Now we saw Matt Rule talk about he doesn't want people just saying he gets under the radar recruits, but it is his specialty in finding those diamonds in the roughs, being the first to offer, and then developing them into something. So also very quick for his size, laterally and his cone drills and stuff like that. So
sure.
Very excited about David Hopkins, and was one of those guys that just kind of came out of nowhere, man. So and now we know why, just because he was spotted at the camp, and they offered him on the spot. So a couple more recruiting things before I get into some of the other stuff that we're going to go over. Brian Tapu. Brian Tapu was, a kid from New Zealand that was favored to come to Nebraska. Oregon State sneaks in there at the last second, and Oregon State, he committed to them. So Nebraska is still looking for a tackle in this year's recruiting class after losing out on Broderick Scholl and probably Tapu and Utu. So it's one of those things where Nebraska's in a situation right now where they have to, you got Houston Kahana Torres, who is one of those guys who can play everywhere along the line, but he's scouted as more of a center guard on the inside, but can play everywhere. 6'3", 265. Most think his best fits at center, but knows how to use his strength, moves well, is very balanced. But yeah, looking for a tackle still in this class to really make me feel good about that position. But so it's just still on the lookout for that. Let's keep our eye on who kind of progresses there, and if Houston Kahana Torres might be a guy that they look to be very versatile. So Jeremiah Jones also visited this weekend, 6'4", 200 pounds, just a freak athletically. Safety, 7 interceptions the last 2 years, 97 tackles in 2024. But, he started at quarterback. He's another one of those guys that Matt Rule loves. Started at quarterback, and he played a little bit of everywhere. He threw for over 600 yards, had a 6-2 touchdown interception ratio, ran for 204 yards with 3 scores, 220 yards and a receiving touchdown. And that was just on the offensive side of the ball. The 7 interceptions in the last 2 years, 97 tackles, and the 60 tackles this season were because people were apparently moving away from him offensively and trying to avoid his side of the field, as tends to happen with of his ability. So, and I'm just quickly moving through this so we can move on to our other topics. But yeah, again, we just really need a tackle in this class, really need to, and I think Nebraska has a really good shot at landing, Jeremiah Jones, Houston Kahana Torres. But, I see a lot of stuff on Twitter talking about Matt Rule's recruiting, and Nebraska's missing on some of these guys. And yes, that's recruiting. That is the way. But I did a video before where I broke down Matt Rule's success rate and how it dwarfs anything that we've had in recent years at this school, in this university, based on how many visitors he gets out versus how many he turns into commitments. And so it's part of the nature of the beast that we've had so much recruiting momentum going good, that we miss out on a couple guys and everybody's like, what is happening? The sky is falling. The world's over, so overreactions a little bit, in my opinion. Recruiting still on the right track. Again, the only concern of mine is just getting a tackle in this class. So, okay. So I appreciate y'all letting me touch on the recruiting update. I'll come out with a breakdown video in more detail for y'all. So I had a few just questions to ask, y'all, just based on, Scott, like I said, I get to pick your brain a little bit. Ken, I get to pick your brain a little bit. So first things first, I want to recap your takeaways from your conversations with Wistrom. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Wistrom and
Jared Tomich.
Yeah. Kind of what are your takeaways from what they had to say on Nebraska now and where they think the program's heading?
Well, first of all, one of my first takeaways, the first thing that jumped out at me when you asked me that question on Twitter was, holy crap, I had no idea that he initially was going to end up picking Michigan. He's never said that before. He said that on the stream. So we broke news, folks.
Yeah. Hey, that's cool. Yeah.
It's like you said, I feel like this is a safe space to say that.
Yep.
Which is a pretty good compliment.
Yeah.
But the fact that he, was luckily down in Houston, was able to meet up with that other coach and get connected with some of the guys he would play with, and immediately going, oh, wow, okay, cool. Yeah, this is where I need to go. It's just another evidence that God loves the Cornhuskers, because he made sure Grant Wistrom got there.
For sure.
You know what? Most of the show for me was kind of a blur because I'm sitting looking at comments and stuff, trying to figure out which ones I wanted to throw up next for the guys to talk about. Scott was doing the same thing, and I was doing that for a purpose. And the purpose was I didn't want to go complete fanboy, because I talked with both of them for like a half hour before we went live, which was really fun and also really awkward because I didn't know what the heck to talk about, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, the other takeaway was that Grant still hates quarterbacks.
Okay. That's I'm
So,
not
I thought
surprised.
that was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty. Oh, I just don't like quarterbacks. And then we had the perfect opening. We could have said, well, what about Dylan Raiola?
Yep. Yep.
But we didn't go there. So I don't know what they said about the current team. They really like Coach Rule. There's no doubt about it. They said he's been as accommodating as any coach that they have dealt with since Osborne retired. So I think that bodes well. And the fact that, I don't know, maybe they're going to be in the stadium for that Colorado game, because it'll be the 30th anniversary of that 94 team. And that Colorado game in 94 was the springboard that you knew this team had national championship capability, because that was a really good Colorado team. So anyway, I've rambled on enough. Scott, what are your...
Oh, you're fine. No, I love to hear this, because again, this gives people the opportunity to be able to go check it out as well, but just interesting hearing their thoughts on the program currently. Scott, what was your takeaways?
Well, it's just so interesting, because I mean, like, our whole concept of our podcast is generational experiences as a Husker fan. I come from an entirely different generation. I was born in 94. So I was 3 years old the last time we won a national championship. So I don't remember anything. Even in 2001, it was still outside of the realm of things that I could remember. Things were more important to me at that point in life than football. And so it was really interesting to look at these guys, these gentlemen that I grew up watching on VHS tapes and idolizing, because I truly believed throughout all the years of me getting into Husker football that we were just 1 year away from winning a national championship. There's like, for me in my young adolescent mind, I couldn't differentiate the contrast between what I was seeing on the field currently and what I was watching on those VHS tapes. I truly believe that we were always just one season away from winning a national championship. And it all started with watching videos of Tommy Frazier and Grant Wistrom and the Christian brother, the Peters brothers, and just all of these individuals that made Nebraska who they were in the 90s. And so sitting in front of these guys as a generation removed from that was just surreal to me. And then being able to see their opinions about this staff and being able to connect the dots of like, okay, yes, there's no way we're going to relive the culture that we grew up in. We live in a different time. Times are different. Times have changed. But when it comes to the foundational markers of their culture of working hard, playing as a team, this isn't about me. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than me. And they were able to, through their inner workings and their inner circles, were able to say with fairly decent confidence that what Matt Rule's got going on right now is the foundational shift that's going to lead us back to that kind of culture. And then I asked them straight up, as a millennial, as a person who has not had the pleasure of experiencing a national championship team consciously, can we do it again? Is it something that Nebraska has the capability of doing again? Can the Miamis, can the Tennessees, can the OUs, just point out all the blue blood programs and say, can they win a national championship game? And I mean, in theory, sure. But as a Nebraska fan for the last 15, 20 years, it's really felt far away and almost impossible. Like that was a time that has passed and we're never getting it back again. And that's how I felt for the last few years, especially the last 10 years. I really, truly felt deep in my bones in the most despairing way that I'm just never going to taste that joy. And that was kind of harrowing. That was kind of existential. And so when I asked them, I asked them from the bottom of my heart, I was like, do you think we can do it again? Without hesitation, they were like, yes, absolutely. No doubt in my mind. And that just gave me so much, like, injected into my veins. Give me the Kool-Aid, inject it directly to my heart, because I needed to hear that, especially from Husker greats. Like, if you look up top 25 Husker football players.
Yeah.
Those two dudes are there.
Yep.
And arguably top 10.
Yeah.
And so, like, what am I to do with that? That's creme de la creme. That's as best as you could ask. And as a Husker fan, that was just a surreal moment for me.
For sure.
As a generation removed, but that's why it's Generation Red. It runs generationally, and now we got 3 generations. I'm gonna indoctrinate my kid, and hopefully I experience national championship games that he doesn't.
Yep.
And then maybe he goes through another 20 years of drought, who knows? or we're just great forever.
I wouldn't wish that in hell on anybody.
The good thing about that conversation and hearing that stuff, is you'll hear people say things like that a lot, right? But with those two, and you could tell by the manner in which they spoke that if they felt something was off with this program, they would have been honest with you and been like, currently, I don't think under this leadership it's going to be able to. But the fact that they were so, and I remember when they answered, it was very quick. He's like, absolutely. It's one of those things where those guys know this stuff inside and out. They know the programs, they know the cultures. And so for those guys to say that with that much confidence and talked about how much they believe in this staff, that's pretty telling. And I think that should give a lot of us on the outside looking in confidence, because a lot of us act like we know what goes on behind closed doors in the locker rooms and stuff that those guys actually know. So it's one of those things where it's hearing from those guys, it hits a little different. But cool moment for sure for both of y'all. Scott, you get to kind of work with people that you kind of saw as legends and kind of before your time, those mythical type of legends that you didn't get to witness. And then fast forward and you get to interview them, and Ken, you get to live it out with the guys that gave you your happiest moments in Husker fandom. So
it was surreal for me, for sure. It was every bit as surreal for me as it was for Scott.
For sure. So, all right, let's get into just a few of the questions I had here. Drop your questions in the chat again, whether they're football or not. I'll get into the chat just to hear just a little bit, just to see what we got going on. So most excited I've been since 2020. That was a very hyped up off season. Yeah, this is one of the most excited I've been for the off season. Coach Noe, I have recruiting problem. You mentioned you get help even. Got a 5-star QB, another kicker. One of the things about recruiting too is getting these guys on campus is something Nebraska wasn't doing previously. Being able to get these 5 stars and high 4 stars, that is part of the process in Nebraska's turnaround. It's like you're not going to get these guys in year 1, but as Nebraska starts to win, then those visits turn into more commitments from those higher end guys. But we're getting a lot of higher recruits to campus, and that's one thing that people are kind of neglecting to mention in the recency bias of the negative news. So LFG, like number 20, I appreciate you dropping in. LFG, never too early to be negative. Negative Mike coming in as usual. Negative Dion's burnt out. All right. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, I've been watching the comments scrolling, are making me laugh. So
man, this is great.
Yeah, it's okay. Scott Frost can't hurt you anymore. Yeah, point on the doll where Scott Frost hurt you.
Bitch,
Yeah.
to chill and trust Coach Rule no matter what. I'm worried about with the team. Some Stone Age Huskers were badass, but you guys.
Nobody's saying they're not. LFG. Nobody's saying they're not. It's just before my time.
Tommy Frazier and Eric Crouch back there behind me. Tommy
I would
Frazier's
love
helmet.
to interview Johnny Rogers. Like have him on the show. Hell yeah.
Well, never mind me, doesn't approve.
I don't know about that.
Perfect time to click up that comment. Right?
The timing was
Oh
impeccable.
my goodness, that was great.
And Stephen, we went over that earlier, just going over the Lateef, news and the comments and stuff like that. I think that he's doing this as an opportunity to leave his recruitment open for other teams to potentially come in and offer and see what they have to offer. I think until he decommits, I'm going to say he's coming to Nebraska, because we have no indication outside of that one comment to believe otherwise. So I'm a very evidence-driven guy. There's not much evidence outside of that. So we'll see as time goes on, though. Recruiting changes day to day.
Long time till December. Yep,
100%. We're ready, Nebraska. In Rule We Trust, BA Coach's Show motto of 2024. All right. So let's go ahead and we'll get into the other questions. So let's go ahead and ask, who are your top 3 players that you're most excited about and it's not only about production. Is there an under the radar pick? And I just came up with these questions to ask kind of Scott and Ken's opinion on this to get their takes. So top 3 players you're most excited about and an under the radar pick. I'll start with you, Ken.
Alrighty. My first one is Ramir Johnson. I think he could be an explosive play action weapon if we're able to get the running game going like they really want to, the handoff running game. Vincent Shavers Jr. is my defensive pick. All the reports are he's turning heads and he's bashing them in too. I mean, that first tackle he made in the spring game, I was like, ooh,
yes,
that's going to leave a mark. And then for under the radar for me would be Ja'Cory Barney at kick returner. If we can do on the kick return game a little more than we did last year, if we can get to that 30, 35-yard line when we're returning a kick and maybe bust a couple, he's my under the radar guy for sure.
Absolutely. And Shavers, shout out to Shavers on our video we posted, commented under there. So Shavers is really, he's a good guy. He gets out there and interacts. And so he commented on our stuff. So hopefully we get him on the show one day. Scott, who are your top 3 players?
So obviously Dylan Raiola. It's, and the reason, my selfish reason is the fact that we've had some good quarterbacks in my lifetime, like good quarterbacks, but I've never seen elite quarterbacks. I've seen elite skill sets for a quarterback. Like Taylor Martinez was just an absolute lightning bolt until he got turf toe. And yeah, you know, we've had some pretty good quarterbacks, but have we had an elite quarterback that can really take this program to a different level? No, we haven't. At least since Eric Crouch. So I'm just really excited to see what kind of ceiling he has. I'm sure everybody else is too, but I can't not mention him
for sure.
Then I've got Isaac Gifford, that little weapon package that we've gotten him, you know, just short, you know, he's not the tallest, he's not the biggest, but he can hit hard and he can do basically anything you want him to in the middle of the field. And what we saw last year is, if it's any indication of what he's going to do this year, it's just going to be sky's the limit. I mean, dude is just, as it runs in the family, Luke Gifford, Isaac Gifford. It's kind of rare that you just get that generational back-to-back, you know, wham bam. And that's what we got with him. And I'm just over the moon about it. So I'm just excited to see what he can do this year for his senior year. And then Thomas Fidone. Thomas Fidone would be just such a much needed story at Nebraska. And when I'm thinking of Dylan Raiola in tandem with, it's his freshman year, he's under the lights, he's playing fast football he's never seen before. Who's going to be his most reliable option that's going to be open through every play package ever? It's going to be the tight end, because I witnessed it last year. Fidone was open so many times. It was ridiculous. It was so just head-bangingly frustrating to just see him open so many times. And I think Dylan Raiola is going to find some simpatico relationship with him and is just going to know it's going to be like Gronk and Tom Brady. You just know Gronk's going to be there. I'm just going to throw it to him. And I think Thomas Fidone, yes, we've got some good talent in that tight end room that's going to be spread out evenly. But I really think Fidone's going to have his breakout year, and he's going to really make a name for himself this year. My under the radar though pick, I'm going to have to pick Heinrich Haarberg, and not as a quarterback, but just as a weapon. There's no way that this staff looks at that dude with the wheels he's got and the knowledge he has of our playbook and the experience he now has. Yes, arguably a pretty distasteful experience. He definitely gave some gray hairs to a lot of Husker fans last season, especially me. If anybody's watched our show last year, I was as hard as I could possibly be on that kid. Was not a fan. But if there's anything that I have this staff, if there's anything I trust this staff to do, it's not giving up on the potential of a football player. And I think Heinrich Haarberg still has potential to be a dual threat quarterback that we can throw out there. I don't see a season where we have an injureless quarterback room. And so we're going to have to use depth in our quarterback room. So what is Heinrich Haarberg going to do? What's the story of him? Where's the redeeming, villain arc of just like, yes, Husker Nation, I know I let you down with my 50 interceptions last year, but watch me go off. That's what I want. That's just the selfish, like, under the radar. Who do I want to see succeed that is just flying under the radar? It would have to be Heinrich Haarberg.
For sure. No, that's an interesting pick. It's a
great list.
Yeah, but he's just a great football player all around. You definitely want to be able to utilize his skill set. So adding a quarterback, Jalen Gramstead to this roster too also helps give the ability to feel comfortable doing that, because you don't have to run necessarily the risk too much of not having the depth. And of course you would rather probably turn to Haarberg than Gramstead, but it gives you an extra experienced quarterback in that room that does help, and hopefully be able to open them up to use Haarberg just a little bit more around the offense and the ways that they want to utilize him, because he's a freak athlete. All right, moving on to number 3. So your non-quarterback pick for the offensive MVP of the season. Go ahead, Scott. We'll start with you.
Well, I'd say I kind of alluded to it already. It's going to be Thomas Fidone. I think that he just has his breakout year. I think he's just one of those guys that ends up with closer to the 650, 700 yards mark, and is just constantly available inside of the red zone, and is just being talked about week in, week out. Dang, look at Dylan Raiola or Daniel Kalen or Heinrich Haarberg and their relationship with Thomas Fidone. They're finally able to find him. And then there's going to be some film junkie that's going to go back from last season and is going to find all of the highlights of how many times Fidone was open and be like, look, see, he was right there last year. He could have had this last year. It's just, we just couldn't keep our quarterback inside a pocket for longer than a second and a quarter. Right. So I think it's Fidone. I think he's going to have a breakout season as an MVP. He's going to be just a clutch player. He's going to be there in the end zone, ready to go for us when we need him most. That's what I hope to see from him, and I think I'm going to see from him this year.
For sure. Ken.
Ditto. For me, it's Thomas Fidone.
Yeah.
Namely on third down, on play action, third down, third and short, something like that. You get inside 3rd and 3. Fidone's going to be deadly, absolutely deadly, because you're gonna send a lot of guys downfield, and that middle is just going to be wide open on play action. So, give me Thomas Fidone, and I'll call it now. He's going to lead the team in touchdown receptions.
Interesting.
There you go.
Over Jamal Banks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, let's go ahead and move it to the defensive side of the ball then. Who's your defensive pick for MVP? Non-Nash Hutmacher or
non-Nashty. Okay. I've got his line mate. I've got Ty Robinson.
Almost threw Ty in there, but
yeah, I know. You knew it. You knew that's probably where I was going to go.
Yes, sir.
And there's one reason, because he came back.
Yeah,
because he had a good grade to go to the NFL.
100%.
And he said, no, that Wisconsin game pissed me off. I didn't get the job done. I want to come back and get the job done. Very similar to a guy that came back in 1997 because he was kind of pissed off at the way things ended in 1996. 2 guys, as a matter of fact. So I think he's going to be absolute beast. He's great against the run. He's quick to get in the backfield. He's extremely disruptive. Yeah, he's going to alter a lot of things that offenses want to do. He'll be doubled all year.
Yeah.
He'll beat it.
100%. It's one of those things where Ty has developed so much in the last year and a half or so, because when he first came, highly rated out of Arizona, he's from this area where I live, and didn't really develop or play in the way that they wanted him. I just don't think the staff was able to untap his potential and get the best out of him. But boy, has he come along strong in the last year and some change, and developed into a absolute monster. So yeah, got to be excited about Ty Robinson. And never mind me says it's Nut Smasher last season. So
I was, and maybe I'm a little bit biased when it comes to Ty, but I actually got to meet him.
Oh, did you?
purely by chance. I was down in Arizona because that's where he's from. He's from Gilbert. Met him, believe it or not, at the Rio Salado shooting range. So
Yeah.
I was out there just having fun with my son-in-law and for Christmas, and it was like the day after Christmas, and he was out there with his family. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
That's
I got a picture.
cool.
It was cool.
That is cool.
Good kid, such a good kid. And that was when Rule was coming in. That was right after,
Gotcha.
Mickey wasn't coming back and Rule had just been hired. So, yep.
100%. Oh, that's awesome. It's cool to really get a face-to-face with some of these, kids and really see just how they operate and how they are as people, because we tend to lose that from time to time. So it really gives you an idea of just the type of person that they have in these locker rooms, and that's the type of guy that was committed to Nebraska from the start. And like you said, coming back is just huge. So Mike, just about the kicker thing, Nebraska did pick up a kicker. So I'm drawing a blank on his name, but they did pick up a kicker. So again, have not given up on Mr. Tristan Albano. So take that for what you will.
Leash is going to be short.
Contested point, but all right, Scott, go ahead with your the answer to the next question.
I think it's gonna be one of those defensive MVPs that might go somewhat unnoticed until we're able to recap the season and realize that Tommy Hill had his position locked down.
That's my guy.
I think that he might get a few picks, but honestly, maybe not, because they're just not going to want to throw the ball his way, because they're going to have, WR1 on lock or WR2, however they distribute it. I just have a feeling. I mean, that dude he's just so athletic. He's got that twitch. He's incredibly competent.
Yes.
And so I just think he's just one of those like what's the metaphor I'm looking for, where he's just like the most important unheard person in the room. Like that's just who I think he's going to be this year, and we're not going to realize it until maybe later in the season, when we realize that we haven't seen Tommy Hill's side of the field hardly at all so far this season.
Correct.
And there's going to be a good reason for it.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned him, because I actually did a video 2 weeks ago, the most unheralded, underrated player on Nebraska's team, in my opinion, just and nationally even, is Tommy Hill, because he was a guy who last year was put in the wide receiver room at a certain point, and coming into this season wasn't even supposed to be on like the 2 deep depth chart at defensive back, or even, a starting position, wasn't even thrown out there as a potential starter, and came around and became one of the better cornerbacks in college football. He was up there, I mentioned in the video, but in coverage grades, he was right there with Kamari Lassiter and Kool-Aid McKinstry. Kamari Lassiter, of course, getting drafted to the Texans 42nd overall. Kool-Aid McKinstry getting 41st overall. And then, they were right behind Cooper DeJean at 40th. So he's right up there with those guys neck and neck in terms of his coverage grade. And yeah, it's going to be one of those things where he's probably not going to be targeted as heavy, especially with the potential rotation going on at the cornerback room. Hopefully we get Bly Hill back sooner rather than later, because that's really going to help having those two on the sides, because Bly Hill, I think, is going to be very up there in terms of level with Tommy Hill in terms of his coverage, if they can get him healthy, hopefully quickly. So, and just moving on to our last, and so, y'all are not big recruiting guys. So I wanted to throw from guys who aren't huge into recruiting. What's your favorite recruit from this class currently that we have, or this upcoming class, or just the recruit that you have your eyes on the most?
Well, all drama aside, I'm still going to pick TJ Lateef. Just because I've watched film. I don't know if, film is always just highlights. And so it's always the best of the best that you can see. So it's always so hard to really go into the nuances of, especially a quarterback. I mean, there's so much contrast when it comes to a quarterback's play. But when it comes to reading what a national analyst says about somebody, this is like, if you go on 247 and you look at Greg Biggins, his just initial take on Lateef, first thing he says right out of the gate, Lateef is one of the nation's top signal callers. It's like, that's an interesting attribute to link together with a quarterback, an athlete of the sorts, that he's a good signal caller. So that tells me that he's really good at football knowledge.
Right.
He knows a playbook. He knows the ins and outs of the X's and O's. And that's exactly the kind of guy that Matt Rule wants to build an offense around.
Yep.
We just so happened to get lucky with a 5-star quarterback that couldn't do everything. But following Dylan Raiola's footsteps, we're going to need to fill in his shoes with somebody who's competent and capable. So all drama aside, let's just assume TJ is as he is on every website and in every way measurable. He's committed. He's still our guy. So let's just play it like he is. It's not sky is falling fan base here. I know it's super easy to do. I get it. But yeah, he's just he's probably one of the most intriguing. I mean, he's the top rated recruit we have so far. So that's low hanging fruit. But that's my main reason for liking him is just all of his attributes that the analysts give is just, he's got a good blueprint. He's got really good foundation that can be built off of. And I love that.
Yep. Ken, what's your answer?
We talked about him earlier, David Hofkin.
Yep.
Just the potential.
Yeah.
The fact that this staff, their blueprint is, we're going to try to get the highly regarded guys. We're not going to shy away from going for the highly regarded guys, but they're also not too shy to go, this guy's got potential and I think we can develop him. And
Absolutely.
they can probably develop him sooner rather than later. Because he's 22 years old. So he's got a grown man's body and he's got 4 years to use it. And there's not a lot of wear and tear on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not a lot of wear and tear. So give me David Hofkin, whether he plays this year or not, maybe in garbage time. Maybe we get some garbage time snaps out of the kid. Well, he's not coming in until next year. So he's not playing this year. Never mind.
Yeah. But physically, just like muscle maturity and just his strength, he's ready to come in and play immediately if need be. He doesn't have to really build that college next level strength because he's 22 years old. He's kind of already developed that muscle maturity and that strength that comes as you get older into your 20s. So LFG here, not obvious guys. Tommy Hill's my number one, Buford the second, and Jamal Banks the third. My favorite offensive player is Emmett Johnson. Emmett Johnson's probably my favorite player on the team. I think Emmett Johnson is going to be the best running back that we have, and Wilson agreed with me earlier. But last year, coming into the season, I did a running back preview, and Emmett Johnson, somebody I talked about because he was getting 50% of the first team reps before the season started. So and so he was a guy that was. I didn't surprise me when he came in and was able to make moves because a lot of people thought Quentin Ives would even be over him. And I love Quentin Ives, but Emmett Johnson's just a guy who can do a little bit of everything. He can run around you. He can run through you. He's good at operating in a phone booth with his feet. His footwork is excellent. His football IQ and acumen is there. And his work ethic is the biggest thing you take away from listening to him talk. When listening to him speak at the podium this offseason in preparation for the spring game, he mentioned that he wasn't even looking forward to that Saturday because he was just looking forward to practice the next day. And that is the grinder attitude that you love to see in Matt Rule's kind of his Nebraska team, because that's what he's trying to build is those type of mentality. So big guy, big Emmett Johnson fan here, and Dion looks like he is too. So one thing, since we're closing out on our hour here, I did want to say over on our other channel, mine and Sonny Verma, we have a channel called The Big Ten Show. I'm going to drop it in the chat right here. We are at almost 1,000 subscribers. We are at 991 on that channel, and our Nebraska program overview is the latest one. So it's Big Ten Show on YouTube. If y'all want to check it out, check out our Nebraska program overview. Drop a like, leave your comments. Let us know what you think. Wilson Dittman joined me in that one to break down Nebraska. So, and if y'all want to help us get over 1,000 subs, go ahead and click the link and hop on over there. So I appreciate that. And Ken and Scott, man, I can't thank y'all enough for coming on again, making the time. Scott coming right after he got off work and, joining us right on the money, right on time. So appreciate y'all's time. Ken, do you want to just tell the people again where they can find you and what you got coming up?
Yeah, you can find the show at GenRed Pod on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. It would be Generation Red would be the search term in your favorite podcast app. You'll find the audio for all of our live streams there if you prefer to listen to the show. GenRedPod.com is our website. GenRedPod@gmail.com is our email address. If you want to email me, we'd be glad to take those emails. We've got a charity golf scramble coming up on October 12th, 2024 that Scott and I are kind of spearheading to provide relief and more aid for those who had to deal with the aftermath of the tornadoes on April 26th, right around Lincoln. It was really surreal to be sitting here in the studio taking cover and watching all the coverage on the TV that I'm looking at now, and it was crazy. So just kind of felt an obligation that we needed to do something. So yeah, anybody who wants to volunteer to help us out with that, it's in Eagle, Nebraska on October 12th. We'd really appreciate it. So genredpod@gmail.com to email me. If you got any memorabilia or anything that you have that you'd like to donate for a silent auction, awesome. We'd appreciate that too. And that's pretty much about it.
Awesome. So, and Scott, just anything before we sign off from you, anything for the people to look forward to or anything like that, and where they can find you. If well, you're not on socials, so
nope, can't find me anywhere on socials. All I can say, probably the most important thing that I could mention is that Iowa's corn sucks.
All right, I love.
Yeah, that's
we can rock. We can rock with that. We can rock with that for sure.
We're not sure when our next live stream is going to be, but it'll probably be in July sometime. And I think we're going to have a former player on. I'm kind of in talks with a couple of people. So
awesome.
More recent.
And just to let y'all know too, I am on the characterchronicles.com website, so you can find my stuff on there as well under Characters Crew. So officially been added to that. My Big Ten show will probably be added as well.
Very cool.
So really grateful to him for reaching out to me and inviting me to come on to his website and be a part of that. So, and next week, Coach BA from the BA Coaches Show is going to be on, and of course he's very, very knowledgeable of the game. He was a 5A football coach in the state of Kansas, high school football coach. So a lot of knowledge there, and so we're going to be given a football perspective and some X's and O's next week. So look forward to that, and you'll be able to find his stuff over at the BA Coaches Show right there. So go check that out. We'll have him on next week. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.